Hi, I'm Carrie, and this is Student Loan Chit-Chat. All right, so I'm going to do a reaction to a Dave Ramsey video. This video played actually 4 years ago, but it's incredibly relevant because this video played 1 year before the pandemic hit. And what it's about is a guy who has $430,000 in student loans. He went to medical school to presumably become a doctor, and he did not pass the state boards. And so now he is in $430,000 worth of debt, and he has no degree. So I'm going to do a reaction to this. And this is being used under the YouTube Fair Use Act. And what I really want to point out is, even though this is an extreme case, okay, yes, he owes $430,000 in student loan debt and has no degree, I find that it really doesn't matter. You know, to some extent, debt is debt. Kind of like, pain is pain, okay? Yes, most people would rather say, borrow $20,000 and have no degree than borrow $430,000. But it's my personal experience that the stress it puts on you is still stress. It's still sleepless nights, regardless of the amount of debt owed. But the fact that we've had the 3-year pause that's now coming to an end, as you know, student loans started on September 1st, just about 2 weeks ago. And now the student loan moratorium has come to an end. I would absolutely love to know where this man is today. My suspicions is that he's not in much of a better situation. And I will tell you at the end what I think he should do. All right, so let's go ahead and play this. This is from the Dave Ramsey show. And I want to say, I really do like Dave Ramsey. Wish he had been around when I was in my 20s and 30s. Probably would have saved me some financial headaches. But even though, I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Ramsey when he says, student loan forgiveness will never happen, because I had my $110,000 student loan forgiven. However, he does give a lot of, hard-cutting advice, in my opinion, about, how people should deal with their debt. Though I don't always agree with everything that he says on it, and that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a listen at this video. The video is about 5 minutes long before my commentary. Here we go. Oh, by the way, the headset that I'm using, these are Microsoft wireless headphones. They're about $100. I've had them for a couple of years. They're outstanding. They hook up, to anything Bluetooth. So if you're looking for a really cool wireless headset, I would go with a Microsoft wireless headset. I'll put a link in the description box, if I remember, as to these headphones that I'm using. Start this on the beginning here. All right, here we go.
James is in Lexington, Kentucky. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm pretty good today, Dave. How about yourself?
Better than I deserve. How can I help?
Well, got myself in quite of a mess right now, and I'm not really sure where to start to get out.
Okay.
To start with, I have currently about $430,000 in student loans.
Good Lord.
Yes, I was in medical school. I had failed 2 sets of boards after 3 years, and then was recently dismissed.
All right, stop right here. Something that I don't know about you guys. I just about had a heart attack myself, and that's not even my student loan debt. Okay, so he was in medical school, failed the boards. I guess the boards is what you have to take to graduate from medical school. Okay. What people have to remember, schools are not in the business of telling you when to give it up. Okay, they're not in the business of saying, hey, you're really not cut out for this degree, or you know what, we've been watching you the last, I don't know how long medical school takes. I know it takes years, okay, but we've been watching you the last couple of years or whenever, and we just don't think you're cut out for this. People have to remember that when you are in school, the school is not your friend when it comes to deciding when you should throw in the towel. Okay, the school is not your friend. So him racking up $430,000, and you can see the look here on Ramsey's face. Okay, school is not your friend. You have to be the person to determine when you should give it up. All right?
And so about 80 of that, 80,000 is from undergrad, and then other courses later on to get into medical school, and the remainder is from medical school. But right now I have the debt, but no degree to, that I was planning to use to actually be able to pay that back.
Okay, so he was planning, like most of us do when we go to college, he was planning that, he would use his career, his degree skills, to pay back the $430,000. Now, look, I was a teacher. No, I am. I'm a teacher, and I'm in my 18th year. And how did I get myself into 110,000? Which now at this point just looks like that's nothing compared to this, okay? But how did I get myself into 110,000? Well, I borrowed 80,000 to go to school and figured I'd pay it back with my, with my career, okay, 2 master degrees. And I failed to realize that even though I was, that was my intention, I failed to do the math as to whether or not I could mathematically pay back an $80,000 student loan on a teacher's income, okay? Single school teacher income, okay? No kids, all right? But could I pay that back? I failed to do that. And that is something that's on me. That's my fault. And that's how I wound up with a student loan bill that I could not pay. So here this guy is thinking, hey, you know what, $430,000, we're tipping here at almost $500,000, okay? He's thinking it's okay if I take out all these loans because I'm just going to be able to pay it back so easily.
So at this point, I don't really know what my options are to try to dig out of this.
You're right. That's a mess. I'm so sorry. That's scary.
It is.
Yeah. How did you get that far into it and then not be able to pass the boards?
I did fairly well during the first 2 years, but it was just, I think, being able to, I guess it was one thing to take an exam every few weeks or every month, but being able to retain that and then to recall it to the level of detail that I needed for the exams, I just couldn't put it all together at the end.
All right. Being an educator, 18 years in the business dealing with middle school students, one of the things that I have to evaluate is, does somebody know the material, even though they may not test well on it? But the difference is we're not talking medical boards, okay? I'm looking to see if they can write a paragraph, can they put some sentences together, stuff like that, okay? Harmless stuff at this level. But here he is basically saying that, yeah, I understand the material, but I can't put it together for the test. If I had to go into his academic history, and I'm talking, before he entered medical school, if I were a betting person, I would say that he's had this issue for a while, where he knows the material, he feels comfortable with it, maybe if he's, kicking back and reviewing it, in the comfort of his own surroundings, if he feels like it's a non-stressful test situation. But it's that test fear, freeze, and fright that a lot of students get, and a lot of adults get it too, and he's, clearly an example of it. But I'm willing to bet that this was an issue before. The problem, however, is when we are talking this issue in the collegiate level, especially when you're talking medical. You got to be able to recall this stuff. I mean, if you think about it, you're going to be working on patients. People's lives are going to be in your hands. And I don't want to be critical because he's already in a, he's punishing himself enough, I'm sure, at this point. But the bottom line is, as a patient, a prospective patient, do you want a doctor that only knows it when things are calm? What are you going to do when you're on the when your patient's on the operating table, something unexpected happens? Are you going to freeze up? Are you going to not be able to recall? If he can't handle it in a non-medical situation and it's simply under testing, how would he be able to handle himself on the job? It kind of makes me think of pilots who have to all of a sudden immediately come up with a plan that may not have been in the textbook. Okay, they've got 250 people's lives on board, not including the flight crew, and all of a sudden they have this unexpected emergency. So he sounds like he freezes up when the pressure really gets on him. And he's not the only person to do that under testing situations.
Is there any way you can re-engage and still have a shot at finishing?
Not without having to reapply and then go through the process all over again. And also have to take out more loans.
So what are your when did you flunk the last one?
That was this past spring. And
Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. There's one thing I really do respect Dave about. He's hitting it hard. He's using the words. When did you flunk this? When we talk about not passing collegiate level courses, we can't make it pretty. We can't, we're talking tens and tens of thousands. In this case, this guy's out, James. Okay, Lexington, Kentucky is out nearly $500,000. We can't afford to just sit and use pretty words and say, well, when did you have difficulty with this course? Or when did you not pass this? No. We can use that for middle school and maybe even high school. When we're talking collegiate, when you are talking tens of thousands of dollars of borrowed money, even your own savings account, okay, when you are talking that type of money, no, you got to admit it. You have to just admit it. You flunked it. And I like the way he just said it. We worry so much about using, PC, politically correct terms and stuff. No, you flunked it. When did you flunk it? And I think that's a real admission on just we have to face the truth.
Let go this summer.
Okay. So since then, what has been your plan?
Well, I've basically just been getting by. I was able to find a job, first of all, as a substitute teacher, and I was hired as a high school biology teacher. But my loans are on deferment right now, and I have some forbearance to go. Okay,
so his loans were on deferment. This is the pandemic was in 2020. This was a year before the pandemic, so I think this is about 2019, okay? So loans are on deferment. We have to also remember, folks, student loans, you don't get unlimited deferments, okay? It's not just non-stop deferments. And that's the reason a lot of students are driven to go back to school, because they're like, oh my goodness, I'm out of deferments or forbearances, whatnot. And, I need to take more classes so I can stay in deferment, stay in forbearance. In this guy's case, now he's teaching high school courses. He didn't need to go $430,000 in debt to teach high school courses. He could have done what I did and just go $80,000 in debt, not be able to pay that. Okay, I'm being kind of facetious there, okay? But to do all that, to basically wind up teaching high school biology.
But at this point, I'm not sure any of the other career options. I've thought about, physician assistant, other programs like that, but it requires going into more debt. Because I'm not in a position where I could work and then pay as I go.
No, he's not.
Plus pay off the current, the loans I've got now too.
Yeah. So what would it take to be a PA from where you are?
I would have to take about another year of classes. I would have to take some other entrance classes, and then 2.5 years for the program itself.
He's in an especially tough situation. Because here he is with $500,000 in student loan debt, and for him to even try to get anywhere in the medical field, what's he going to have to do? Go back to school to take on more debt. This is something that I've seen in numerous stories. Okay, numerous student loan debt stories. Okay, they've already racked up debt. They don't have a degree, but they have to go back to school to try to do anything with this degree. If I were him, I would not. I would not go back to school.
Wow.
And then and that's probably at least another $60,000 to $70,000 in tuition and living expenses.
What about nursing?
It's my undergraduate degree was in biology, and then I did pre-med.
And so none of the med school work you've done applies to anything else.
No, none of it. I have the debt, but none of the courses, none of it actually I can transfer to anything.
Wow. Well, I mean, the only thing I know to tell you is to try to assess some kind of a career, and that's what I'm poking at here. I don't know enough about that world to try to help you. But we obviously need to get to the point that we're making some good money to begin to pay this through, right? And so
Right.
I want to lead you towards something that's six figures to try to plow through this with, and or get on maybe with some kind of a hospital type of a company that would do some student loan pay for you.
Okay. The issues that I see is and Dave's absolutely right. He needs to try to up his income. The problem is, and I'm not a medical field person, so forgive me if I'm misspeaking. Maybe put it in the comments if I'm wrong. But my hunch is that even if he tried to go another medical route, the problem is he flunked the boards not once but twice. And I'm just going to be really honest here. What medical facility wants to hire you? What medical facility wants to hire someone who's flunked the boards twice? What medical facility wants to hire someone that has F's on their academic transcript when they can hire people who have gotten straight A's, when they can hire people who are at the top of their class, maybe have gone to some Ivy League schools and all of that? What person wants to hire? And we can say that that's cruel, but folks, part of what we have to look at when we take on student loan debt, we have to look at the reality of the situation. We have to look at the reality of what job is it you want to go to? What are your strengths academically to get through that career course? What are your strengths as far as, even location of where you live? Are there access to resources to the career you want to have? Or are you going to be required to have to move to obtain that career? What is the cost of that move going to be? The situation is that even if he were to try to find a medical facility that might hire him, I suspect they're never going to hire him. And I think Dave's kind of alluding to it. They're not going to hire him in a job that's going to pay off a $430,000 student loan anytime soon. If ever. I'm going to lean towards and say if ever. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go to the interview. Why are you sitting in this interview for a PA? Why are you sitting in this interview, even as a custodial? Well, it's no insult to custodial, of course, okay? But why are you not in a medical field? Well, I'm not in a medical field because I flunked the board twice. I got test fright. I got through the first 2 years and I just couldn't cut it. Is that the doctor you want? Okay. And again, this isn't knowing who this James person is. Okay. But just, imagine yourself as the patient and a checklist of all the different type of medical people you could have. I personally would not want someone who had flunked the board twice. And I don't imagine a medical facility in any high paying jobs would want that either. So even if he could reroute his career there, I don't know who would hire him. And that's why I don't think he should go back to school to try to still go in that direction to incur more debt. And he's saying it's like $70,000. So now we are solidly at $500,000.
As part of your signing bonus, that kind of a thing. Obviously, you're not going to be doing that as an MD, but
right.
The PA idea is a good idea. Something around the biology or medical field, but I want to move you well beyond a high school biology teacher to pay off $430,000 in debt, right?
And I can tell you as a middle school language arts teacher, public school teacher, no, it's not. You're not going to pay off $430,000 in debt, not on your own. It mathematically, you can't do it. Maybe if you live at home and your parents pay everything under the sun for a few decades, then you might be able to do it. Of course, you could also win the lottery, but we can't count on things like that.
Exactly. And the other issue, right now, I'm 34 years old, and so I have all this debt and I have an emergency fund, but no retirement savings, nothing at all. So I don't know.
Well, I'm not worried about that until we address your income. Okay. We got to address your career track, which gets you to your income, which solves the debt problem and then solves the retirement problem. I'm not in a panic about that today. If you were 66, I might be, but you're not.
I'll be doing a reaction video, hopefully, maybe even tomorrow on Sunday, possibly on Sunday. But it's about a woman who has retired as a school teacher with $100,000 in student loan debt and how she's had to return to work. More people are in this situation than you can imagine.
You got time to work through that. You've just got to reset here and land on your feet from a career standpoint and find something that you can use this biology and medical aptitude that you have, short of MD, to try to get some income coming in. James, that's all I know to tell you, man. I'm sorry you're facing this.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream here and be back in just a second. Okay, so what we really have at this situation, even Dave doesn't have answers. And that's because this situation is so extreme. There are no easy answers. But I have a suggestion. And it's what I would tell him to do. I would say he needs to go into public service. I don't like to say, education's easy and that everybody should become, an educator if no other part of your life goes right. But he does have enough college credits, I imagine. It wouldn't be too difficult for him to become a teacher or some sort of, public service medical person. In other words, he works for nonprofits. If I were him, okay, and he's got a biology degree, here's what I would tell him to do, just point blank. You need to teach biology, sir. James, okay, I believe it is. You need to teach biology for 10 years and get that debt wiped out through student loan forgiveness. That's what he needs to do. I personally do not see a way. Or he needs to go into sales and just become the top salesman. Maybe go sell cars or something. And even the car market's having its own issues. All right. I would tell him, you need to dedicate the next decade of your life to public service, whether it be, working for the state, city, federal. Okay. It doesn't matter. People need to remember public service loan forgiveness covers a huge array of jobs. Okay. It's not just teacher, nurse, firefighter, military. You could go work for the DMV. All right. Go on income based. Literally, he could work for the DMV at $20 an hour if they pay that much. I don't know what the DMV pays, but let's just throw a number out there. Work for the DMV, $20 an hour. He goes on income based. He does it for 10 years at $430,000, which will then be well over $500,000 after a decade has passed. But it won't matter because he will get that wiped out tax free. Because this is a problem that he's dealing with. Even if he were to be able to get it, say, forgiven. All right, he was able to get the loan forgiven. He goes on income based in whatever job he has. He gets the loan forgiven. He's looking at having forgiven a student loan that is going to be in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now he owes that. Now he owes that to the IRS. His problem isn't solved. So to really, if we're talking about let's solve the problem, okay, let's just solve it. I'm telling him, okay, James, if you get a chance to see this, okay, become a biology teacher for 10 years. Teach high school biology. Teach, high school biology for 10 years, right? Wipe that bill out after 10 years. 10 years, income-based payments, you can have the entire bill wiped out, which we all know will exceed, $500,000 by the time all is said and done, okay? We'd be looking at a $600,000 bill. All right, when all is said and done, but because you will have taught in public service for 10 years, that entire bill will be wiped out. That's what he needs to do. And if I had to advise him, that is the way to wipe out the bill. Because any other way that he goes about doing it is going to be, he's going to be dealing possibly with job layoffs, whereas education is pretty steady, it's pretty steady. And biology teachers, and I'll be honest, male teachers in the world of education, they're valued. Okay, they're valued. Male teachers are highly prized and valued. Okay, race not even a factor. All right, just male teachers. Education needs more of them. Okay, and I really think that if he's passionate about his field of biology, to get a degree in it, transfer that passion to young minds. Do it for 10 years. All right, he's young enough. He can do it for 10 years and have the entire bill wiped out tax-free. The other thing is that's a lot of debt to also try and pursue a relationship. Okay, not that I'm sure relationship is probably his last thing, and maybe he already has a significant other or whatnot. But I'll be honest, I would not I would not have been surprised if somebody had said to me when I had $110,000 student loan, till that was forgiven in August 2022. I wouldn't be surprised if someone had said to me, Carrie, you're carrying a really big student loan for somebody, in their 50s, because I went to school. I carried that loan for 16 years. In 16 years, from the ages of 38 to 56 or 55, because forgiven last year at the age of 55. I would not have been surprised if somebody had said to me, I'm really just not interested in taking on someone who has that much debt. Okay. It's not even the amount of debt. It was the size shovel I had to clear it with, and I didn't have the shovel. Now, if I had the shovel, no problem, start laying some turf down. Okay. But I didn't have the shovel to clear it. But in all honesty, I would not have been surprised if somebody had said, I'm really not interested in a chick, smart as she may be, all right, and is into fitness, all right, but it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me if this guy's personal life, you're looking at his personal life, his financial life, you're looking at his career. This is a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. And if you notice, even Mr. Ramsey didn't have much of a solution other than, I'm so sorry you're in this debt. Because really, what do you tell somebody who's flunked out of medical school, who was flunked out of the boards twice? Do you tell them to go back? Hey, like James, the caller, was saying earlier, it's going to cost another $70,000. And he's talking about more room and board. Holy cow. So now we're going to be $500,000 in debt. Just the interest, just the monthly interest on this loan would keep me awake at night. Just the interest, much less trying to get into the principal. This is something, we have to all remember when we go to school, and I failed to know it, and this is why I have this channel, because people have to realize when you get into student loan debt, nobody is going to look out for you but you. Okay? Nobody's looking out for you but you. If you're lucky, you might have a parent that's really on top of it and is able to guide you through. Okay? But really, when it comes down to it, for most people, okay, there's not a it's kind of like a stopgap, measure for help when they start flunking. Okay? Very few people have the resources or just the knowledge or the access to assist somebody when they get to the critical point of, we are either failing out, in this case, we're failing out of medical school, or we're going to find a way to stop it. He had no resources to stop it. And if he had this much difficulty with testing, I'm not even sure if he had a tutor, because my thought was, okay, so maybe he could have had a tutor or something. That doesn't necessarily help you, however, if you freeze up and you get such test fright during a major exam, like the boards are, okay? I can only imagine trying to take those, but that even a tutor's not going to be able to help you. So his problem perhaps isn't even that he doesn't know the material. It's just he's never found a way to get over extreme test fright. So anyways, to keep this from being any longer, I'm going to also start trying to do more video reaction, or do more reaction videos. They are a little bit more time consuming to make, but oftentimes I'll watch a video and I'll think, oh my goodness, this is so important. And I just really felt this was important. It doesn't matter if you are 20 years old and you racked up $15,000 in student loan debt for a degree you don't have, or if you're this guy and you've racked up $430,000. The bottom line is, you have student loan debt for a degree you did not earn. Should you continue to go to school and keep, making a bigger debt hole for yourself, or should you quit? Me, I would say stop, regroup, and whatever you do should now be taking you out of debt, not putting you further in debt. I would love to know where he is 3 years after the pandemic, now a student loan starting. And I truly will be praying for him. I hope things get better. It's going to be quite a road to climb. All right. I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit-Chat. Thank you so much for joining me. I do hope you will consider subscribing, and have a great day. Bye.